Elliot hated storms. Always had. Something about the relentless pounding of rain against the windows. The way the wind shrieked through the trees like a living thing set his nerves on edge. Tonight was worse than anything he had seen in years. The power had already flickered twice, and he kept his flashlight within reach, dreading the moment the house would be plunged into darkness. He was alone, curled up on the couch with his laptop, trying to drown out the storm when it happened. Knock, knock. Elliot froze. His eyes flicked to the clock in the corner of the screen. 11:57 p.m. Who the hell would be at his door at this hour? He sat in rigid silence, listening. Maybe he had imagined it. Maybe it was just the wind tossing debris against the house. Knock, knock, louder this time. Slow, deliberate. A prickle of unease crept up his spine as he set his laptop aside and stood. Moving cautiously toward the door, he peered through the peephole. Nothing. The porch was empty. The rain slashed down in sheets, the wind howling through the trees. But there was no one there. His breath came quicker now. He knew what he had heard. He wasn't imagining things. Knock, knock, knock. His breath caught. He was still looking through the peephole. No one was there, but the knocking was right in front of him. His phone buzzed in his pocket, nearly making him jump. He fumbled for it, glancing at the screen. A text from his neighbor across the street. Do not open the door. Do not look under it. Elliot's body went cold. His fingers trembled as he typed out a response. What do you mean? The reply came instantly. It's not a person. A sharp, deafening bang made him jolt. The knocking had turned into pounding. The entire door rattled in its frame as if something, someone, was trying to break through. Elliot stumbled backward, his heart slamming against his ribs. Then, just as suddenly as it had started, silence. He stood frozen, listening to the storm outside, his own ragged breathing the only sound in the house. Seconds stretched into eternity. Then, a new noise, soft, slow, dragging. The deliberate, sickening sound of something pulling itself across the floor. His stomach twisted as his eyes dropped to the gap beneath the door. A shadow stretched out from underneath, reaching, twisting, unnatural, like it was feeling for something. The air in the room turned thick, suffocating. Elliot couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Then, from the other side of the door, he heard it, a voice, low, whispering, I know you're home. His blood turned to ice, because this time, the voice wasn't coming from outside. It was behind him. Sarah had always loved the solitude of being home alone. The quiet wrapped around her like a warm blanket, letting her focus, unwind, and enjoy an evening with no distractions. She had everything planned. Order takeout, binge her favorite show, maybe even doze off on the couch. A perfect night. But as she settled in, remote in hand, she heard it, a faint scraping noise. At first, she dismissed it as the wind, but something about it wasn't right. The sound was too controlled, too precise. It was rhythmic, deliberate. She frowned, muting the TV. The noise continued, soft but persistent. It was coming from the air vent. Her stomach twisted. Just the house settling, she assured herself. Maybe a raccoon or a rat got inside. She forced out a nervous laugh, shaking off the unease, and turned the volume back up, pushing the thought away. Minutes passed. Then, scrape, scrape, scrape. Sarah froze, her eyes locked onto the vent across the room. The metal slats looked darker than usual, almost like something was lurking behind them, watching. Her pulse quickened, pounding in her ears. She swallowed hard and grabbed her phone, flicking on the flashlight. The bright beam cut through the shadows as she took slow, cautious steps toward the vent, her breath shallow. The light hit the grating, and then she saw them. Eyes. Two gleaming, unblinking eyes stared at her from inside the vent. Her breath hitched. Every muscle in her body screamed at her to run, but she couldn't move. She couldn't breathe. The thing in the vent didn't blink, didn't shift, just stared. And then, in a voice like dry leaves scraping against stone, it whispered, "I thought you'd never find me." The house went black. Dan had never liked the old mirror in his hallway. It came with the house, mounted to the wall as if it had been there forever, unmovable, unyielding. The glass was slightly cloudy, warped in a way that made everything reflected seem just a little off. But it was just a mirror, nothing more, or so he told himself. That night, the wind howled outside, rattling the windows as Dan moved through the dimly lit house. He was heading to the kitchen when something made him stop. A cold prickle crept up his spine. His reflection something was wrong. At first, he couldn't place it, but as he raised his hand instinctively, his reflection followed, just a fraction of a second too late. His stomach tightened. "It's just your mind playing tricks on you," he thought. "You're tired." He shook his head and walked away, trying to ignore the unease curling in his gut. But just as he turned, something in his peripheral vision made his breath catch. His reflection hadn't moved. A pulse of icy dread shot through him. Slowly, hesitantly, he turned back to the mirror. His reflection was still there, standing perfectly still, staring. Dan felt his skin prickle as a sickening sense of wrongness settled in his chest. He took a step closer, peering into the glass. His reflection didn't move. Then, very slowly, it smiled. Not a natural smile, not his smile. It was stretched too wide, too forced, like it didn't belong on his face. Dan stumbled backward, his pulse hammering in his ears. This wasn't real. It couldn't be real. Then, the reflection moved, not to mimic him, not to follow. It raised a hand inside the mirror and pressed it flat against the glass. A hairline crack splintered outward from its palm. Dan's breath hitched. Another crack, then another. The glass webbed with fractures as his reflection kept pushing. The surface trembled, groaned under the pressure. Dan turned and ran. He barely made it to the hallway door when a sharp, splintering crash rang out behind him. The mirror had shattered, but the footsteps that followed him down the hall told him something else had come through. Mia had always loved stormy nights. There was something comforting about them. The steady patter of rain against the windows, the deep, distant growl of thunder rolling through the sky. It made her feel safe, cocooned in warmth, while the world outside raged. Tonight was no different. She was curled up in bed, the soft glow of her bedside lamp pushing back the darkness. The storm was stronger than usual, the wind howling through the trees like something alive, rattling the window panes. But inside, everything was calm until she heard it, a noise, soft, almost imperceptible, a creak, like the sound of weight shifting on the wooden floor. beneath her bed, Mia froze, fingers gripping the edge of her blanket. She held her breath, straining to listen. "It's just the house settling," she told herself. "Just the wind." But then, a breath, slow, shallow, coming from directly underneath her. Her pulse slammed against her ribs. She stayed perfectly still, her body rigid, every nerve on fire. She wanted to believe she was imagining it, that it was just the storm outside playing tricks on her. But she wasn't imagining it. Something was breathing under her bed. A slow, measured inhale. A soft, controlled exhale. Like it knew she was listening. Her throat tightened. She couldn't move, couldn't scream. Her shaking fingers inched toward her phone on the nightstand. Every tiny movement felt deafening in the silence. Finally, she grasped it, unlocking the screen with trembling hands. She typed as quickly as she could. "Are you awake?" The message was for her mom, who was supposed to be home. The response came almost instantly. "Away for the weekend, remember?" Mia's stomach dropped. Her parents weren't home. She was alone. A new message popped up before she could type again. "Why?" Her breath came in short, panicked gasps as she slowly typed her response, each letter feeling like a death sentence. "I think there's someone in the house." Her thumb hovered over the send button, but then she hesitated. The breathing. It wasn't coming from the hallway. It wasn't coming from downstairs. It was still underneath her. Her fingers felt numb as she erased her message and typed a new one. "Under my bed." She pressed send. The silence was suffocating. The storm raged on outside. But inside her room, everything was frozen in eerie stillness. She stared at her phone, waiting, praying for a response. Then, her phone buzzed. Relief flooded through her as she glanced at the screen. But the second she read the message, the air was sucked from her lungs. "Mia, I just got a text from you. It says you're under the bed." Mia's vision blurred. Her skin turned ice cold. She didn't type that. She never sent that message. The breath under her bed hitched, and then a hand shot out from the darkness, clamping around her ankle. Ice-cold fingers, inhumanly strong. She tried to scream, but the hand yanked hard and pulled her under. Josh never really used the security cameras his landlord had installed. The house was in a quiet neighborhood, the kind where nothing ever happened. He lived alone. Who would bother him? But tonight, something felt off. It started as a nagging feeling, a tightness in his chest he couldn't quite shake. He tried to ignore it, sinking deeper into the couch, eyes fixed on the TV. The storm outside had kicked up, wind rattling the windows, rain tapping against the glass like impatient fingers. Then, tap, tap, tap. His head snapped toward the front door. He frowned. Probably just the wind or a tree branch knocked loose. But then it came again. Tap, tap, tap. Not the wind, not random, deliberate. A creeping unease spread through him as he hesitated, his fingers tightening around his phone. Slowly, he opened the security camera app. The front door feed loaded. Nothing. Josh exhaled, shoulders sagging with relief. Maybe the camera was lagging. He switched to the feed overlooking his driveway. Empty. Then, just as he was about to put his phone down, a notification popped up. Motion detected. Living room. His stomach dropped. His living room. The room he was sitting in right now. Cold fear washed over him as he tapped the notification, the feed loading with agonizing slowness. And then he saw it. Josh stared, his breath caught in his throat, heart hammering so hard it felt like it might burst. The screen showed him sitting on the couch, phone in hand. But he wasn't alone. There was something standing behind him. A tall, thin figure, deathly pale, too still. Its mouth was wrong, stretched too wide, as if something had torn it open from ear to ear. Black, empty eyes bored into the back of his head. Josh felt a scream claw up his throat, but no sound came out. He didn't feel anything behind him. No breath on his neck, no presence in the room. But on the screen, the thing moved. It lifted one unnaturally long arm and reached toward him. Josh's stomach twisted into a knot of pure terror. His body went ice cold, fingers gripping his phone like a lifeline. This isn't real. It can't be real. His mind screamed at him to turn around, to look. Shaking, he forced himself to move. His breath came in short, ragged gasps as he turned his head inch by inch, every nerve in his body bracing for what he knew would be there. But nothing. The room was empty. His whole body trembled. The logical part of his brain scrambling for an explanation. A glitch. A camera malfunction. My mind playing tricks on me. His pulse still thundering. He turned back to his phone, desperate to check the footage again. And his blood froze. The figure was still there. But now, it was staring directly into the camera, smiling. And then, with an agonizing slowness, it lifted one long bony finger to its lips. Shh. Josh's stomach churned, his breath coming in sharp gasps. The screen glitched, flickered. The figure was gone. A sudden suffocating silence filled the house. The storm outside had stopped. No wind, no rain. And then, behind him, a whisper. Josh didn't get the chance to scream. Emma had always felt safe in her home. A small house in a quiet neighborhood. Nothing fancy, but it was hers. She lived alone, and she liked it that way. No roommates, no distractions, just peace. Tonight was no different. She curled up on the couch, a blanket draped over her legs. The soft hum of the television filling the dimly lit living room. Outside, rain pattered against the windows, and occasional gusts of wind sent tree branches scratching against the glass. Then, a noise, faint, from somewhere inside the house. Emma sat up, the hair on the back of her neck prickling. It had been soft, almost imperceptible, like a footstep on carpet. She muted the TV, listened. Silence. She exhaled, shaking her head. Probably just the house settling. Then, as she reached for the remote, a thud. Louder. Closer. Emma's stomach twisted. This time, it hadn't come from the walls or the pipes. It had come from down the hall, her bedroom. A sickening wave of unease rolled through her. She lived alone. There shouldn't be anyone else in the house. She reached for her phone, fingers unsteady, checked the security app. The front door, locked. The back door, locked. Windows, locked. No motion alerts. Her eyes flicked toward the hallway. It was dark, too dark. The light in her room should have been visible from here, but the doorway was black, a yawning void, like something was standing there, blocking it. She swallowed hard. Hello? Her own voice sounded weak. Nothing. The silence stretched, thick and unnatural. And then, a creak. A single, slow step. Emma's pulse skyrocketed. Someone was in the house. She shot up from the couch, heart hammering against her ribs. She didn't hear breathing, didn't hear movement, but she felt it, an unseen presence lurking just beyond the darkness. Her brain screamed at her to run. But to where? The front door was across the living room. If she ran for it and they were faster, her stomach dropped. Her keys, they were in her bedroom. She needed to see, needed to know. Trembling, she reached for the lamp beside the couch, clicked it off, The living room plunged into shadow. Now she could see them. The faintest silhouette stood at the end of the hall, tall, unmoving, watching. A shiver crawled down her spine. Whoever it was. They weren't trying to hide anymore. Her phone vibrated. She nearly screamed. A text from an unknown number. "I like your house." Her lungs locked up. The message sent shivers through her. The way it was worded, like they weren't just in her house, like they had been watching it. For a while, her grip tightened on the phone, fingers flying over the screen as she typed, "Who are you?" 3 dots appeared. They were typing back. Her whole body was shaking now. The dots vanished. Then, a new message. "You should really lock your bedroom closet." Emma's vision swam. Her closet. Her brain raced. Had she checked it before bed? Had she left it open? The closet door was right beside her bed. If someone had been hiding in there. She had been asleep just an hour ago. A cold wave of nausea washed over her. And then, the figure moved. A single step forward. Emma ran. She bolted for the front door, fumbling with the lock, her hands slick with sweat. She didn't dare look back, didn't want to see how close they were. The deadbolt jammed. She yanked it harder. Behind her, a whisper. "Emma." The lock gave way. She ripped the door open and stumbled onto the porch, gasping for air. Rain pelted her skin. Wind howled through the trees. But she didn't stop, didn't look. She ran barefoot across the driveway, straight to her car. She yanked the door open, threw herself inside, locked it. Her hands fumbled with the keys. Oh, God. Where were her keys? Wait, she didn't have them. They were still in her bedroom. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the chills, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. But be careful, because sometimes the things we fear in stories have a way of finding us in real life.